Good morning, everyone. It is day 3 of our Back to Basics challenge, and today I'm here to talk with you about squats, how they should feel, how to set yourself up so that you know you're doing them right or that you're getting at least a good, strong foundation. And hi, Deneen, good morning. And also how to set up your exercise tubing. So as you guys log on, just a quick reminder about the live videos. If you have a question or a need to make a comment, if you type that in the comment section, it pops up onto my screen. And as long as I'm not back towards the wall performing a squat or showing you how to set up your tubing, I will be able to see it. Otherwise, I'll obviously be able to see it right after I post the video and I can answer your questions then. But I will definitely be checking to see if you're posting anything or if you're hitting that like button while I'm chatting with you. So as we let more people log on here and we talk about squats and how to set up your exercise tubing for success, I want to introduce this idea for you. So it's really, really common for us to go to a personal trainer or to an exercise class, and especially when it comes to strength training, we hear, this is how you're supposed to do a squat, or this is how you're supposed to do a push-up, or insert any other strength training style exercise. And we get this very rigid, often rigid, and I totally did this in my early days of coaching exercise and teaching classes, so the instructors are definitely coming by it honestly, but we get this very rigid idea of what form in certain exercises should look like. And because you guys are obviously on the internet, on Facebook and on social media, it's not surprising that you almost see like wars happening about this is how you do a squat. No, you definitely shouldn't do it that way. You should do it this way. Or a trainer will post a video of themselves doing a squat and there's a million people critiquing their form, which is totally fine. The idea is that what I want you guys to start thinking about, because this is what I've done with lots of my clients over the years, is that embracing that idea that there actually is no perfect form. So our bodies are all totally different, right? We have different injury histories, we have different ranges of mobility, we have different leg lengths, our hip sockets are all different. There's a ton of variation of normal in terms of structure of the physical body. So it makes sense that the exercises that we do, like squats and push-ups and etc., are going to look a little bit different for everyone who's doing them, because we're not all entering into a squat with the exact same structure. So the structure of our body is going to dictate what the squat looks like. And I'll go into that in a little bit more detail when we actually start squatting. So what I want you to take home from this is that when you are working out with your best friend and their squat is a very wide stance squat, and that feels really great for them, and you like to do more of a narrow squat, or you don't turn your toes out at all, they're very pointed forward, and someone else really likes to turn their toes out a little bit, you're both right. And it's finding that ideal setup for your squat and other exercises that is going to help you feel the squat how it should be felt. So I'm going to guide you through that today. So some of the common cues that you'll hear for a squat are like, don't let your knees go over your toes. Make sure that your feet are lined up straight, pointing forward. And neither of those cues are bad or wrong. They just don't help to create the best, most functional, safest, good feeling squat for a lot of people, especially women. So what I like to do is give you some tools to set up your squat a little bit differently and to not have this rigid idea in your head of what perfect form is going to feel like. And you know what? If you set up your squat a little bit different each day, it's totally fine, because we don't actually want to get strong in only one range of motion, right? Like if we squat the same way day in and day out, we're actually only getting strong in one plane. Whereas I want you to be able to be strong in all different planes of motion, because that's what actually helps to transfer more to daily life. It helps with injury prevention, and it just helps you to feel stronger and your joints to feel better. So I'm going to give you some basic tips to set up your squat, and I need you to understand that there's going to be tons of room for tweaking those cues and tips based on what works for you. So when I teach someone how to do a squat, what I usually start with is foot position. So when it comes to foot position, I like to have a wider stance with my toes turned out slightly. So it's a little bit different than your normal squat, right? So oftentimes we're taught to have the toes pointing forward and to sit the hips way, way back. I like to have a little bit of a wider stance, the toes turned out, and then when I sit down into my squat, my knees totally come over my toes, but my heels stay firmly planted on the ground, right? So the knees are not dumping inwards, they're not totally dumping outwards, they're kind of following the middle to the second toe. So I'm sitting back into my squat and then I'm pressing the floor away like so. So you can see my torso stays pretty upright. That feels really good for me. I have pretty flexible ankles, so I don't need to flex too much in my upper body, right? So sitting back into my squat, it's almost like I've sat right down into my pelvis, and then I'm firmly pushing the feet into the ground. So step one is finding that setup. Maybe trying not to have your toes pointing forward, but having them turned out slightly, having a slightly wider stance. This works really well for many women just because we tend to have a deeper kind of hip socket than lots of men. Obviously, all of us have different hip sockets, so it's not like we can say women are like this and men are like this, because we're all on a different spectrum of what our hips are going to be like. The next thing is paying attention to what happens at your ankles. So when we're squatting, we want the ankle to stay stacked so that it's not rolling in as we squat. This is really, really common because we tend to not have great foot mobility or foot awareness because we wear shoes all the time these days. So I do like to train in bare feet sometimes. So when the ankle's staying stacked, the feet are not rolling in, right? Then when we're sitting back into our squat, it's almost like there's a bench behind us and we're letting our butt reach way back so that we can tap that imaginary bench. You can even try putting a chair down so that your butt will reach back and tap that chair. It's also really common for the knees to come forward, right? So we are not trying to keep our knees right over our ankle. We're allowing our knees to bend forward so that our hips can come back. The key is that our heel does need to stay on the ground. So you may see people squat with their heels coming off the ground, and there are some interesting variations that are totally fine for some people, but the vast majority of us need to have our heels firmly planted on the ground because that is how we're going to get our glutes, our butt muscles, to do the work. So heels firmly planted on the ground, ankles not rolling in, knees are allowed to bend over the toes, but only to the point where our heels can still stay on the ground. Our hips are really reaching back, like we're reaching for that imaginary chair. And it's almost like if this is your pelvis, when you're squatting, I want you to sit into your pelvis. That sounds like a funny cue, but instead of just like reaching your butt way back to like tap a wall behind you, it's almost like we want to sit down. I'm trying to give you a view here. Sit down into the pelvis like this, right? So that's why this nice wide stance works really well to get set up into your squat. So for those of you guys that are in the Lifestyle Club and you get my workouts programmed for you every single month, I often program sumo squats and goblet squats and just normal squats. And these are also just different variations of how to set up a squat. So a sumo squat is typically a wide stance squat with your feet turned way out, like this. right? It helps to activate our adductors, our inner thighs a little bit more. So this is what a sumo squat looks like. When you're setting up a normal squat, we don't necessarily want the toes to be turned out that much. We want them, I would say, almost at like a 30-degree angle, right? A 45-degree angle would be more of a sumo squat, and a 30-degree angle for me works really well in a normal squat, right? So I'm sitting back. Where should we be feeling our squat? Definitely in the quadriceps, right? The muscles at the front of our legs, they're definitely working. We also want to feel the squat in our glutes. So if we can't feel it in our glutes at all, let's try and turn the toes out to that 30-degree angle, right? Have that sort of wider stance than you might be used to. And when you get to the bottom of your squat, really push the heels into the ground and squeeze the glutes as you stand up. Now here's the thing that gets lost a lot in exercise classes. At the top of your squat, we don't want to tuck the tailbone under, okay? We want to squeeze the glutes just to standing and then stop, right? We can go right back down into our squat. We can squeeze the glutes at the top, but we're not tucking the tailbone under. And the reason why we're not tucking the tailbone under at the top of the squat, we don't want this action, is because that does not help to create a functional and strong core. I know this sort of line of thinking is really prevalent in bar classes, and that's totally fine. I think there's specific reasoning why they would do the tailbone tuck, but when we're doing strength training and we're trying to lift heavier weight, and heavier is relative, so 20 or 30 pounds, we don't want to be training the tailbone to tuck under, because what it does is it increases more tension in the pelvic floor. And we don't actually want more tension in the pelvic floor. We want the ability to create tension and release tension in the pelvic floor and in the core. So not tucking the tailbone under, just literally squeezing the glutes without the tailbone tuck. Try that next time. It's very, very challenging. It takes a little bit of time to train your body not to do that tailbone tuck. So we're going to start moving on to tubing, because I've given you my big things that I need you to know for a squat. You should be feeling it in your quads. Honestly, I can feel my quads and my glutes from my strength workout one the other day. You're squeezing your glutes at the top without tucking that tailbone under. You're watching that your ankles aren't rolling in. You're watching that your knees are tracking in line with your toes, not dumping in too much. You're not hunching through the upper body, nice and relaxed through the upper body. You're sitting into your pelvis. You can even put a chair there that you can literally sit onto and then squeeze your glutes to stand up. If you have any questions that come up or you're like, man, I tried that sit into your pelvis idea for the squat and it really didn't help me. I'm feeling pain in my knees. Please type that in. I'm more than happy to troubleshoot with you and give you specific cues that might work really well for you and your specific squat, because we're all different. So that's where we're gonna leave it with squats. I'm sure we will come back and talk about them a lot, because they are a common, wonderful exercise that we can get a lot out of. Now we're going to move on to tubing and setting it up properly for your rows and your pull downs, because you have rows in workout number 1 and pull downs in workout number 2. So I like to use these super bands like this for rows and pull downs, because you can use them anywhere. They're relatively cheap, aka you do not need to buy a whole entire cable machine like this. If you want to do that, that is great. If you have access to one at a gym, that's also awesome. But when it comes to consistency, it's really great to be able to work out from home, and these guys do a wonderful job. So you can see that it's just a big loop of tubing, right? So when you set yourself up for your row, the best way to do this is if you have a sturdy, tall bar in your life that you can loop your tubing on, that's great. Many of us don't, so a very sturdy post in your house, a very sturdy post up for your deck outside, a a railing that has the little posts going up and down. Make sure that they're sturdy, because if you tie your tubing around and you pull and the post comes out, it would not feel very good. And basically what we do is we take our tubing, right, we loop it around like so. We put this through here just like we're creating a little slip knot like that. And there you have it, right? So you can hold on to the ends of the super band like that. So when we're setting up our row, we're either going to do it standing or seated. Both are great options. We're trying to keep the rib cage stacked over the hip bones. So once again, not leaning back, not doing that tailbone tuck, having the tall torso position. A row, the tubing is going to be right in front of your chest, okay? So you're gonna hold on nice and strong like this. You're gonna set your shoulder blades down and back, and you're gonna pull your elbows right beside your torso as you bring your shoulder blades together, and then you're gonna slowly release. So that is what your row is going to look like. These exercises for the mid-back are fabulous because they help to increase posture, they can help to decrease neck tension, and it helps to add some balance to a lot of the more anterior-based exercises that we do, like chest presses, push-ups, and shoulder presses. The back exercises are often forgotten in workout classes and in a lot of the free workouts that you can Google on the internet. There's tons of push-ups, tons of mountain climbers, tons of burpees, but we often forget about the back side of our body. So doing the row and pull down movements are great ways to get more of that muscular balance to help open up your chest, create better posture, and decrease neck pain. So that's why I'm making you do them. Plus, I love back exercises. So that's how you set yourself up for a row. If you're going to do the pull down, which is in workout number 2, you would loop this around somewhere higher up, right? So same sort of setup. I'm gonna loop the super band through itself so that it's anchored higher up than chest height, right? So a tree works well. Once again, a deck works really good. If you have a landing in your house where you can tie the tubing a little bit higher up, you can also use it on any type of squat rack or playground. That works really well too. And you can do this, once again, standing or kneeling. You're gonna hold on to the straps of the super band. I'm just gonna show you kneeling so that we get a little bit of an angle here. So we're trying to target the lats, which are the muscles right here on the outside and back of your armpit sort of area. So same idea that you're pulling the shoulder blades down and then releasing with some control. So we're not just letting the tubing come forward, right? We're sliding the shoulder blades down and then releasing. And this helps to work those big muscles of the back. We want to target these guys because it's a lot of muscle mass, so it helps us to increase calorie burn, which is going to help to increase overall calorie burn in our workouts, right? When we're focusing on using big muscle groups. So setting up for the row and for the pull down is really simple if you have a super band. If you have a piece of tubing that is just a single piece of tubing with the 2 handles on it, you can also totally loop it over a swing set, loop it over the edge of your deck, loop it around a rail, right? And then you can pull like this for your row and like this for your pull down. So the 2 kind of basic differences for the row and the pull down, they're working similar muscle groups in your mid to upper back. The row, you want to think about bringing the shoulder blades together, and the pull down, you want to think about kind of pulling the shoulder blades down a little bit more, okay? At the same time, when you're doing these actions, the pull down and the row, we're not popping our rib cage forward, okay? We're keeping the rib cage down and not moving this part of our torso very much. The reason being, when we keep our torso pretty steady, we're able to allow the muscles of the back to do the work instead of using our range of motion to do the work, okay? And obviously we want to favor the muscles being able to do the work over our range of motion. So if you have any questions coming up with squat setup, how the squats should feel, where you should place your feet, how to set up tubing, whether you have the super band, which are really great. There's a link to purchase the super bands in your Get Going guide. I'll also post it again in the group just so you have it. Or they're a little bit harder to find at like Fitness Depot and stuff like that. Or if you have a piece of tubing with the handles on the end, that totally works for rows and pull downs. And those are awesome exercises to make sure that we include in our workouts. Okay, if you have questions, type them in. I'm happy to answer them for you. Most important thing that I want you guys to remember is that when you're doing these exercises, it's a good idea to have maybe like my voice or another trainer that you've been to in your head, helping you understand where you should feel the exercise, right? So the row exercises, we're feeling the back of the shoulder, mid-back, the lats. That's where we're feeling the work. When you're squatting, you're feeling it in your glutes, in your quadriceps. You're keeping your core engaged by that rib cage stacking over the hip bones, right? So you don't need to think about a million things while you're doing the exercises, but check, like, are you actually feeling the work in your muscles, or is it a lot of knee joint pain? Is it a lot of low back pain? Then we need to tweak things. We need to set it up so that you actually feel like the muscles are doing the work instead of the joints, because we want to strengthen the muscles and not wear down the joints or put extra stress or strain on them. Okay, you guys. I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and I really hope that you'll be able to join me here on the internet, in our Facebook group for our live workout tomorrow at 9:30. We are going to be going through workout number 2. So it would be really awesome if you completed your first workout beforehand. So if you did it on Thursday or yesterday or even today, because back-to-back is totally fine, then you can go through workout number 2 with me tomorrow. So you'll need your bench, you'll need your dumbbells, and you'll need some tubing. We are literally going to do a warm-up together. I'm going to talk you through it. We'll do all the exercises. I will count the repetitions. We'll do 10 reps of each of our exercises for 3 sets all together. We'll have little breaks, so we'll be sweating and we'll be breathless, and that'll be really fun. And it will, of course, be recorded too. And we just get to sweat together, which is fun. Okay, have a great day, and I will be back with you tomorrow morning.